Okay, so we're right to go and have a look at the software now?
Yeah, sure.
Okay, thanks for that. So what we're going to do next is we're going to fire up a web browser. I'm going to connect into a live site that's in Australia, and we'll show you the software live. Okay, so this is a live site. I'm just using a browser. I've chosen to use Firefox. I could use whatever I want. We are connected to a network that's got 20,000 ports on it. It's been monitored every minute since about July of the year 2000. I'll probably show you 4 of these reports to give you a good feel for what it does. I'll show you some stuff from years ago and stuff from minutes ago. And I'm happy to take questions as we go with this one. So feel free to interrupt me. Although, since I have done this so many hundreds of times, I may not answer your question immediately, because I find if I give you a little bit of background information, I may be able to answer a clump of questions at once. Okay, so what this is a browser, and I've got a list of reports here, and these reports are out of the box, and it's the same kinds of things that you would expect to see in any network monitoring tool. So things like a dashboard report, and then stuff like what's down, what's slow, what's congested, who's spewing out the most data, who's dropping the most packets, who's running the most errors, what's flapping up and down the most at an interface level, SLA reporting. This report here saved one of our customers $34 million, and they published that in Network World magazine. I'll probably show you that at the end. It's a little bit, it's not a key feature I want to show you today, but I will probably come back to that at the end about how much infrastructure have you got versus how much infrastructure are you using. But then we have server monitoring for CPU, memory, CPU load, IPSLA, NBAR for devices. Of course, we do threshold alerting, all the normal kinds of alerting that you'd expect from a monitoring tool. UPS monitoring, all the way down to NetFlow, SFlow, our own traffic analyzer, and mapping which end user is connected where on the network. Now, rather than show you 50 reports, what I'm going to do today is show you what you can't see with any other product on the planet. We'll just get straight to the good stuff. So let's imagine that we've got a 20,000 port network here, which we do, and we want to know which of the 20,000 ports is the most flooded right now. Well, to find out, you'd go to the most flooded report and you'd click the button. And if this wasn't going back to Australia and back, that would have taken 2 seconds. But with the environment that we're in here, it's taking more like 4 seconds to get it. And you'll see at the top here, we've got a heading which says interface utilization percent. Now, that's the same report that you get out of every other product, including the freeware that you've deployed. The difference here is that this is not showing you the busiest part of your WAN links and the busiest part of your uplinks. This is showing you the busiest part out of all of the 20,232 ports on this network. We got that in 2 seconds. This is sorted in the transmit direction, so the hardest hit link in the transmit direction is at 79%. It's interface 5 on blade 4 of the Copenhagen switch right now. But I can reverse sort that. I could go and sort it by the receive utilization direction, and in 2 seconds it goes out, gets the data, and then pumps it into the browser. This is all 20,000 ports again. I'm displaying the top 20, but I could display any of them or all of them. The data's just waiting there to be pushed into the browser, so I can display any of it. Okay, so now that we know that these are the busiest links, the next thing we want to know is it healthy? So on any of the data in Statseeker, oh, by the way, all of the reports update live. There's a refresh counter up here, and they update either every 60 seconds or every 5 minutes, depending on the report. So now that we know that this is the busiest link in Copenhagen, we now want to know, is that healthy or is it broken? So when we click on it, we drill down into any of them. I've randomly selected the busiest one on this network at this point in time, and the data that we're displaying gets to your question earlier about what OIDs are collected is bits per second, bytes, packets. If there was multicast and broadcast, they'd be displayed here, but this particular interface doesn't have any of that, so it's only reporting unicast packets, errors, discards, and utilization. And we then show you the maximums, minimums, totals, and averages for all of that. And we graph it. So if I page down here, you'll see utilization, bits per second, bytes per second, packets, errors, and discards being graphed. Now, the first thing we did that's unique here is that we just call up 20,000 ports to show you the busiest one. The second thing that's quite unique is that on the top right-hand side of this, you'll see a refresh counter. And in another about 16 seconds' time, it's going to do something very exciting. It's going to add another pixel to every one of these graphs here. So I'll wait till it does that, because There you go. It's now 1 pixel wider than it was a minute ago. And we just did that. We just put the latest data into each of these graphs for each of the 20,000 ports on the network. Yeah.
Quick question for you. Do you support permalinks or the equivalent? So I'm looking at this, assuming it's a bad or a negative picture. I've got a trouble ticket, I want to update it, but I want to update it with a link to the picture I viewed, not what it will be like when the viewer gets a chance to look at it.
Oh. Excuse me.
I guess the question I'm asking is, do I have to take a snapshot of it, copy and paste it, or can I somehow stop time and send a reference to that point in time on that graph back to the user?
I understand your question. No, the next button I press will answer your question.
Okay, thanks.
So the next question is, what does that normally look like and how's it changed? Thank you, Greg. I actually, yeah. Oh, you got that for yourself, didn't you? Okay, so the next question is, what does it normally look like and what was it looking like in the past? So at the top here, you'll see we have, and this really gets, remember I said there's 3 things we do. The first is we scale, the second is we do it every 60 seconds. But the real reason our clients come to us is that we can now tell you if that's normal. Does it always do that or has that changed? Because we never throw out the historical data. So if I just go and get the last 2 months of data, which this has just gone back to Australia to get, it took all of 2 seconds to get it, but this is not normal. Because if we have a look at what it's doing right now and compare that to every other, it's Thursday in Australia at the moment, you can see it's 6:57 a.m. my time, which is why there's bags under my eyes, they're not always there. So this is what it normally looks like. And today is not normal like that, because normally we don't see, oh no, maybe it is pretty normal that the red and blue is red higher than blue at this time of day. Red is transmit, blue is receive direction. But this traffic here certainly is unusual on Monday the 1st. Because you can see it hasn't done that on any previous occasion for any previous Monday. So what I've just done in this one report is I've shown you that it's possible to monitor 20,000 ports, do it from a desktop PC, do it every 60 seconds, and then access historical data. But now I want to show you something that's ridiculously extreme. Now I want to go back 2 years ago and show you what this port did 2 years ago in any 1 minute slice, or any 1 minute slice. Let's do that. Okay, so I'm just going to go back into this self-same interface, and I'm going to go back to 2010, and we'll go and select July. And could I ask you just to pick a day between 1 and 31? Just call a day out. Sorry?
20.
20?
The day between 1 and 31, 20.
20, thanks, yep. Just so you can see that I'm not caching this or anything, I'm just doing all of this live. I'll just get that day. We'll show you every 1 minute number for what it did on that day about 26 months ago. And in 2 seconds, here it is. And I need to shrink my browser a little bit because the resolution with this stuff is not wide enough to display the whole 1,440 pixels. There's 1,440 1-minute data plots for receive and 1,440 data plots there for transmit. That's every 1 minute from 2 years ago. I got it in 2 seconds, randomly from any of the 20,000 ports here. So what is this? It's an industrial strength baseline. And why do I use this example? Because of something that my boss said to me 20 years ago. I was doing his filing, had this big stack of paper, and I was putting it in these files, and I shared it on the podcast. And I said, why are we keeping all of this paper? We'll never need it. And he said, Stuart, when you get into a fight, he who's got the best notes wins. And when you get into a fight with the server guys and they say, it can't be my server, it's got to be the network. Or you get into a fight with the end user and they say, I didn't touch my PC, it's got to be your network. Whoever's got the 1 minute data for memory, temperature, CPU, IPSLA, N-bar, utilization, errors, discards, bytes, whoever's got the 1 minute data who can see exactly when it spiked and how many minutes it was there for, is the one who's got the best notes. And I think this is why our clients come to us, because Statseeker is the best notes. Now, I think I actually just closed the whole browser window then, accidentally. I'll just go and open that up again. So I've shown you one report, but at this point you've got probably a 90% understanding of what Statseeker does. Not sure why that didn't reopen up. I accidentally closed the whole browser window down. Just waiting for my machine to go and open up its browser again.
Hey Stuart, while we're on reports, can those be for capacity planning, mailed daily, that sort of thing?
Yeah, so on each report here, let me just make this a little bit bigger so we can see it a bit nicer on the screen. For each report, if I go and run, say, a utilization report, I'll just go full screen again. On this top right-hand side here, you'll see that there's a PDF button to print it, but there's also this email schedule button here, so that I can take any report in Statseeker and decide what schedule do I want to forward it out. So yeah, out of the box. That becomes important for the SLA reporting. When you've got a boss who wants to know, how's the network going this month? In fact, I may show you that. You guys, I'll show you that now, because you've got probably a 90% understanding of what we do. Everything I share with you now is going to be a diminishing rate of return for you guys. Because what is Statseeker? It's 1 minute baseline of the network, but the whole network, and access it in seconds. So why do clients come to us? They come to us because they've got all the other tools. They're monitoring the core. They have a network problem. It's not in the core. And the monitoring tool is not looking at that part of the network out there. So that's why they end up coming to us. Okay, but just as an example of why you might want to schedule a report, our clients came to us over the years and they said, my boss keeps saying to me, how's the network going? Now I need a report. So this is the report. And what it does is it shows you this month. I'm sorry, the resolution, because of this tiny monitor we're using, doesn't have enough pixels to display this in a big font. But I'll blow it up a little bit and we'll get rid of the stuff on the right-hand side. This is showing us this month and every previous month for the last 13 months in a rolling window. And there's October just jammed in there. And it does it for each group you've got on the network. And it does it twice. If I just have let me find a good example of live data here for you. I might just use, oh, it doesn't matter. Yeah, this one will be fine. If I just go back and look at November last year, actually this is a good example here. And I look at Zurich and what happened in Zurich last year. We've got two numbers here. We've got a total and we've got an SLA. Now the total is what the network actually did. It's 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. It was available 90% of the time. But the next thing a CIO wants to know is, okay, that's what the network did, but what did my users experience? Can you take out my after hours scheduled maintenance? And that's what the next window across is, the SLA report. So the SLA is saying that the users experienced 93% availability. If I then go and drill down into that, it shows us each of the devices in Zurich, a router, a server, and 2 switches. And it shows me that in September last year, where was this? This was going back to November of 2011. Again, it started from 13 months ago, but I got it in seconds. So this device flapped up and down 44 times. It lost 3 days of outage time. But how much affected the users? Well, only 17 of those occasions affected the users. The users lost 10 business hours of time. And then if we drill down into that, it'll show us the hour, minute, and second the device was down, when it came back up again, and how long it was in that state for. But this is the kind of report that you just want to forward that out on an email and just automatically get sent out to your network manager or your CIO or whoever wants to see it every week, month, year, quarter, every second Thursday at 2 o'clock, whatever schedule you want to set it for.
How do we have 2 consecutive up transitions there?
Because what I was looking at there, the question was, why do we have 2 consecutive transitions there, both coming up?
Yeah.
Is that what you saw?
It never went down, it came up twice.
No, it's because I had drilled down into the business hours and it had gone down in the after hours and it came back up in business hours. So that's when you were seeing it. Okay.
I assume that the reports, like what you're pulling, what you're gathering, the reports are static as well. I can't create a custom report.
Oh, that's a bit more of a grey area. I'm going to say that the reports are static, they're out of the box. Many of my customers would say, no, that's not right. They're very customizable. I'll give you an example of what I mean. Let's just say we want to go and have a look at bytes. But instead of looking at bytes for the whole network, let's just go and have a look at bytes in Los Angeles. So you click this button, and instead of looking at 20,000 ports now, if I go and run a bytes report, I'm now looking at bytes only in Los Angeles. And if I scroll right down the very bottom here, you can see there's 871. See at the bottom here, 871 ports. So I just went from 20,000 down to the top 50 out of 871. But then this is sorted based on who's moved the most data in the last 5 minutes. But you might want to say, show me who moved the most data in Los Angeles in the last 3 months. So I can customize the report in 2 seconds by just changing the parameters, the ranking criterias of the report itself. So many of our clients would say, look, the reports are infinitely flexible and customizable, but the core template for it is not. That's out of the box. It just is what it is. If you were to then go and ask one of our developers, is it possible for me to throw another column into one of these reports? I don't want to say it. The answer is yes, but you can. And the emphasis is on the word you, because we wouldn't want to do it, but you might want to do it. Yeah.
Fair enough.
Do you pull down things like interface descriptions that feed into these reports?
Yeah, they all do automatically. So if I just go and get something like all of the WAN links, and I go and get something like a bytes report for that, I'm pretty sure they've got good interface descriptions on here. So if you have a look out here on the right-hand side, it's all a link to San Jose that's busy at the moment. So this is IF description out on the right-hand side there. So to get you to maybe a 93% understanding of what Statseeker does, let's just go and have a look at something really simple like just a hard disk drive filling up. Where's the busiest hard drive on the network? So we'll go and click file system usage, and in 2 seconds it goes and opens up. Remember, this is all live. Remember, we're getting this data from the other side of the planet for the people on the video. This has just gone out to display the top 20 out of 311 hard drives that are being monitored here. This Paris server is the busiest. It's a 70 gig drive. It's got 6.3 gig left. Should I panic? Should I panic? Should I do something with this? Well, I don't know. We don't know till we look at the baseline. So if we drill down and look at the baseline, we'd say, it's filling up really quick. Should I panic on this? Well, again, this is updating every 60 seconds. There'll be another pixel on there in a minute to tell us what happens. But we probably want to, oh, by the way, see there's no data there? That was time to panic. Something broke. So we'll just zoom out. I'll show you the last 2 months. And no, we don't need to panic because it always does this. So,
It's normal. It's a feature.
and that's the point. Having real-time data is interesting, but possibly not helpful because it has you chasing all these red herrings when maybe it's supposed to do that. But having real-time data with a historical baseline that has not been rolled up or thrown out means that you can possibly make a decision based on fact rather than based on emotional hormone levels that have gone through the roof because you see a high number on a chart. Okay, you get the idea. Righto, now just to kind of round this off for you, common reports that customers have asked for are things like this, the MAC IP switch port report. Here's 20,000 lines of data being pumped into the browser now. I could do any one interface, but I just happen to do all of them here. And it just shows you which user is connected where. Why do we have that? Well, it's not really the standard SNMP stuff that we do, but we have it because when you troubleshoot, the first thing you want to know is where's the broken bit, so you see that with SNMP. The second thing you want to know is which user is doing that, well that's what this is here. And then the third thing you want to know is what traffic are they using, and that's where we go into NetFlow for that. But our NetFlow is like everyone else's NetFlow, so I won't bother showing you that today. Yeah.
Joe Polar on the back that's doing a reverse DNS lookup to create those in human readable names.
I'm sorry, were you asking me how we collect that data?
Oh no, I get how you do it. It's cross-referencing your up table and your MAC address table.
Yep.
But Joe Polar on the back end, that's querying your DNS servers to be able to.
No, we don't talk to DNS at all.
Presumably that's a snapshot right now. Can you go backwards?
To be
See
more
where
accurate,
something was?
it's a snapshot at the last time we took the snapshot, not right now. And the last time we took the snapshot, it's on a 60-minute, to be precise, it runs every 60 minutes after the last time that it's run. So on a network of this size, which is about 20,000 ports, it's going to take about 2.5 minutes to run this report, which means that this will update as a snapshot every 62.5 minutes. So that might have been a minute ago or it might have been 59 minutes ago, so I don't know. But no, you can't go back and have a look at what was happening in the previous snapshot.
That's hard. That requires specialist technology to go track that this way. A lot of data storage.
Yeah, we get asked for it all the time.
So, so your example, 20,000 ports, if you start capturing SFlow or NetFlow, you're talking a lot more storage than probably is on your
Yeah, that's right.
device, and
The numbers I quoted you are all related to SNMP. So I'll give you some examples. On the SNMP side, 20,000 ports is 20 gig a year. That's probably overkill. It's a bit less than that in real life, but 20 gigs close enough.
So if you take, here's a port that's 30%, it's a 30% spike that hasn't been there in previous days. The next thing that's going to be asked of you is what is it? So where's that correlation?
Right, and so that's where we do this. So we then go and fire up the traffic analyzer, And we say, now I've only got NetFlow happening here on Chicago and Atlanta. So if you wanted me to go and troubleshoot something somewhere else, I can't, just for the demonstration purposes here. But if we wanted to see who is flooding that link and what are they flooding it with, then I just want that for the last 5 minutes. Then I'll say, show me the worst one in Atlanta at the moment and get the conversations. And 2 seconds later, here it is. This is just a list capped at 100,000 lines long of who was talking to who, what were they talking, and how much of it there was. But in real life, when you're doing the troubleshooting, what you probably want to do is, from the MAC IP switch port table, where we tell you which end user it is that's flooding the link, you want to see, well, just show me that traffic, because this is the whole switch or the whole router. So just to show you specific traffic here, I'm just going to go and copy that into memory. I'll exit out of this, and I want this window here. Okay, and I'm just going to say only include all the traffic where the source data was this user. And instead of doing it, I've got to put myself right out there now. Instead of doing it for right now, let's go back and get it from, I'll go to 2012, I'll go back to say last month, I'll go and get it for say the 10th. I hope there's data here on that day. And I'll get the entire day. Here's a day of data for all the traffic that that user was sending on that particular day. And about 2 seconds, and there it is. You can see it's filtered out all of the traffic that's not from him and is looking at only the stuff that he's transmitting. But I can filter it on any of these columns. I could say, only show me the HTTP traffic he's sending, or just the SNM bill.
So I noticed you're putting in one browser window, and it looked like it was inserting it all into a really long browser string with all the variables that are inside of there. Can, for example, a ticketing application, if you had an issue with, host 1 switch to whatever, can that be pre-bundled in your ticketing application? Just click a link and automatically pop a report just like that?
It is not a feature of Statseeker to do that, but it's a feature of browsers to allow you to do that kind of thing, yes.
Okay.
So our customers do that kind of stuff.
I guess my direct question, everything you're putting into those forms is being passed back into a variable up in that URL string?
Yeah.
Okay.
Which is nice, because when you know how that string is created, it means you can publish Statseeker reports out to anywhere that you want to publish it and bypass the user interface. Yeah.
Is it role-based access for a customer to have their own views?
Yeah, so yeah, there is role-based access, and to give you an example of how that works, so this is a list of the reports on the left here, and when you define your user, you define what reports they can see and what groups they can see and what data they can see. So you might have the server team can only see the up-down report and the server memory temperature and CPU, and then you have the boss guy and he can only see the utilization, he can only see the SLA report, not everything else. So you can hide data or you can hide reports.
That's built on LDAP. Can you integrate that to LDAP or Active Directory? Or?
There's none of that in the software by default. Statseeker is a FreeBSD Unix box, and there's nothing stopping you doing that yourself. So we don't do it, but customers will go and do that kind of stuff.
So it's handled by the web browser?
Beg your pardon?
It's handled by the web browser, I guess?
Yeah, we use Apache. So it's FreeBSD and Apache, and whatever you can do with FreeBSD and Apache on any other FreeBSD and Apache box, you can do on Statseeker.
Do you require, and since it's FreeBSD, I'm assuming that it's like an appliance of some sort. You just install the whole thing. And
You're exactly right.
okay.
We don't call it an appliance because we let the customer choose the hardware.
Okay.
But the CD itself is an ISO image. They put it in, it automatically loads Statseeker and FreeBSD. All they have to do is give it a subnet mask, default gateway, an IP address, and a password. They type those in, hit go, it reboots itself, connects to the network, then they give it an IP address range, and we go out and discover.
Do you have a problem with virtual hardware, given that as long as people, I know the classic problem with virtual hardware is that people are idiots and can't give it enough resources in order to get it to do what you want. But if I choose to do that, would you guys still support the functionality of the product, maybe not the performance side of things?
Yeah, we do. We support Statseeker and the FreeBSD, but we don't know anything about the virtual world, so we don't support the VM side of it.
Yeah.
But it runs. The
typical problem is usually that a vendor just decides that, oh, you're running it as a VM. It's just
and they wipe you.
unsupported.
Yeah.
Even if I want to ask about the product itself, not necessarily the performance or something like
No, that's fine. We keep supporting you on that. I've probably done 100 installations on VM in the last year and a half or so myself personally, and help the clients install it and configure it, and I can see no difference in performance between a VM and a normal one. There is 2 technical problems that could potentially come up. I've seen one to do with a clock. You guys may be aware that the clock can get out of sync on a VM on a FreeBSD box. I've seen that happen once. And the other is to get this data on and off the disk really quickly. I mean, you just saw me go back and get 1 minute data from more than 2 years ago and get that in a couple of seconds. We do clever things with how we get the data on the disk and how we get the data off the disk. And that requires us to know how the controller behaves. And in the virtual world, all of the parameters are made up. In other words, Statseeker is not going to be optimized. It's going to just, it'll run, but it won't be optimized. Yeah. And the reason I say that is that that's why we don't certify it on VM, because in 2 years' time, all of our optimization fastness that you see here, you may not be able to replicate on VM. But for short-term performance, for like 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 10 months, I've seen no performance change at all.
So you're saying your largest customer would use dedicated hardware box as opposed to using a VM?
Yeah, the largest we've seen on VM is about 280,000 ports in Australia.
Yep.
And when all this is turned off, I'll tell you who it is. And we've been saying to them for about a year and a half, it's going to die any minute now, and it's just still running. It's going to die one day. But yeah, so we prefer them to be on physical hardware.
You might have called this out already, but the backend database, are you using RDT to roll these, or are you actually going to like a MySQL database or something?
Neither. It's our own. And that's one of the key parts to how we're able to do what we do is a purpose-built time series database. So,
So obviously we can query it roughly through a RESTful interface or through the web URLs directly query it. Are you offering is there a SQL interface in this database so you can call it from another engine?
depending on who you ask, you get different answers to that. I'm going to say no, there's not. Okay, there's no API. And now there's guys at Statseeker, if they're watching this right now, they're saying, that's not true, Stewart. Yes, you can. Because anything you can do from a browser, if you know the command, you can do it from a command line. So you can get the data out. But I can't give you a book that says, here's a list of the commands and here's how you elegantly hook into what you want. You have to call us and say, how do I get this data out? And we'll say, use these commands, and off you go and do it that way.
Is it available through the CLI to pass it out, or does everything have to go through the web interface?
No, straight from the CLI.
Okay, cool.
Yep.
So this seems great if we know or suspect there's a problem and we want to drill down. From a usability perspective, other than scheduled reports of TopX, is there some kind of health dashboard or something that would alert me to go drill down into stuff?
Right, yeah, there's probably 3 ways that Statseeker's used. So when I drilled right down and showed you data from 2 years ago and brought that up in seconds, that's really the reactive. I've got a problem, I know it's here, I'm working with the user, I want to get to that particular place. So for example, if Joe user rings up and they happen to be in Auckland, you click the Auckland button, and then you would do this. You'd say, show me the top of everything in Auckland. And in 2 seconds, this is current up to the last 60 seconds. It shows me what's down. There's nothing down. That's the first line here. It shows me the slowest part of Auckland, which is running at 33 milliseconds right now. It shows me utilization, if I keep going down, bits per second, bytes per second, packets, errors, discards. So it's designed through this ranking process to show you where's the worst part of the network. And that can be the whole network of 20,000 ports, or it can be just a small part of the network. So what we often find, we've had one client who's had 100 different users go through the Statseeker training on how to use it. Because it's a university, and they've got School of Science, School of Engineering, School of Psychology, and all the IT guys out there, they want to see just their part of the network. So instead of Auckland, they click on School of Science, and then they're proactively looking at, right, who's the top talker on my network now? Who's spewing out the most data? Who's dropping the most packets? And it's proactively bringing that to the top of the list for their custom view. And then the next user is looking at something else, and then you've got the guys in the central NOC, and they don't have any of these filters turned on. They don't want to look at just Auckland or something like that. So instead, they just say, show me the whole network. It's the same report. It's the top 10 of everything that's happening, but it's now looking at the global network instead. So the ranking process is critical in being able to show you where you want to be proactively looking.
I guess where I'm going with this is, I mean, for a lot of the performance management tools, you're also looking at trending and going against whether it's utilization thresholds and that kind of thing. And one of the useful things is I can see this is absolutely fantastic to go and dig into a problem. Someone calls and you start drilling down. But yeah, it could be a particular site just wants to see how's my network doing today. Whoa, this port is suddenly running at twice what it has done for the last 3 months.
Right.
Or this port's trending in 3 months, I'm out of space. And I'm wondering if, does it go that next step to allow me to be able to look at that dashboard and say, yeah, I can see the top 10, but actually everything's kind of clean and green today.
Right. So it does all of the normal thresholding you'd expect. So if you want to see, is my hard drive filling up? Am I running out of memory? Which box is about to burst into flames because the temperature's going through the roof? Utilization, errors, discards, how many packets are being dropped? All thresholds on all of the stuff that we collect, the thresholds on all of that. Trending is a different story. And let's just go and we'll talk about trending for a bit. So if I just go off and have a look at a utilization graph, and we'll just go and get out of 20,000 ports, the busiest one, for example, this Sol switch right now is a good example. We'll go and drill down into this. It's the busiest on the network right now at 99% utilization. And when people do trending, how do you trend that? I could draw a trend line there that says it's running at 100%. I could draw a trend line that says it's at 50%. If I was only looking between here and here, I would say it's a declining trend line at a 45-degree angle. It depends. Trend lines depend on the amount of time that you include in the trend. Absolutely. So the answer to your question is we don't do it, and I'm going to give you a classic example of why. Here's the more zoomed out view. We're just having a look at the few months there. And really the interesting information comes when you look vertically. Like, is it normal for it to do this at that moment in time? So when we did actually look at mathematics to see if we could look at giving you an alert when it deviates from its mean. But which mean? Because depending on, is it the mean for this day or that week, or, you can draw trend lines anywhere. And if I give you another example, mind you, the important information out of this is just to know that it's not normal. But if we just go back and get that utilization report, and I choose one that does have a baseline that's similar every day, this Cape Town switch, and I'll just go and change that out to 30 days. Okay, so when you look weekly this way, Monday is supposed to be different to Tuesday. So there's no point looking this way because we can clearly see that the weekends don't do anything and Mondays is quiet as well. So what we then did is we started looking at mathematics for can we predictively and cleverly show you how things have changed or deviated from their mean if we look vertically. Because you can see when it's supposed to be busy and you can see when it's supposed to stop. And in theory, you might be able to do that if you're monitoring the WAN, but when you're doing 250,000 ports or you're doing 500,000 ports, you either get too many alerts or not enough. We couldn't get the maths right so that you could just get the meaningful stuff. Because you get these links that are running at 1% and they jump to 3. You go, it's twice as busy as it used to be. Who gives a rat's? It's nowhere near the busiest on the network. So the answer to your question is no, we don't do it. It was too hard for us. But a human being looking at the worst part of the network in seconds will know, is there a trend there or not? And if I was to ask us all to draw a trend line on there, I bet I'd get 1.5 trend lines for each of us, and we'd probably have 18 trend lines up there instead of 12. Yeah.
But I completely get the challenges with trending, and the challenges with the business day and everything else that goes with it. I think the challenge is you've got 20,000 ports, and where do you start?
With the worst one, and that's the one at the top of the list. Click the button.
But I guess where I'm going, and maybe I just use tools a different way, but if I'm managing a network proactively, I've got 30 reports down the left-hand side to start digging into, and it becomes a random process. I just pick a report and, okay, I'll go look at this problem today.
Well, see, the proactive guy, he's going to be proactive. So he will go and look at errors and discards and utilization, and he will be proactive, and he will look through the reports. The knock guy, he'll just run the dashboard report to show me the top 10 of everything just now, and then the guy who's troubleshooting a particular issue will go and get it for that particular issue. The key behind it all is that the way you might use it will be different to the person next to you and the person next to you. And so our job is just to collect the baseline, store the baseline, and then give you access to it in a couple of seconds. So however you want to use it is up to you.
So if I've set thresholds on a variety of different statistics, is there one place where I can go in to say, okay, what broke threshold today?
Yeah.
Across,
It's
across the different stats without having to drill down into each one individually to
Yeah.
see the DSA report.
Yeah, that's a good question. It's the event summary, the threshold summary. So let me just go and get today's ones for you. You just said, show me for today all of the thresholds that have been breached. And there they are. There's a few of them. But you've got CPU thresholds mostly. And this is all time and date stamped for, this is every threshold as they've been going off. But then there's also summary reports of this as well. I've just called up all of them, and there's a lot of thresholds. Let's just have a look here. There's been 634 of them. This is only on a 20,000 port network. When you start scaling this up, you get to the point that you don't actually use it that way. Instead, what you end up doing is you say, right, show me all the utilization thresholds that have been breached so far. Okay, there's none. Or show me all of the CPU thresholds that have been breached so far today. And what this has done is it's taken those 634 and it's rolled them up so you can see how many times the threshold has been breached for each device. So that first one there, that Warsaw Switch 3, has been above 95% for 15 minutes. That is, the CPU has been above 95% for 15 minutes in total. A total of 24 times so far today. And today in Australia, it's currently only 7:27 in the morning, so that's just the last 7 hours. Okay, and then if I was to drill down into that again, it would show me those 24 events that they occurred and the time and date stamp for when it did that. I'm quite comfortable these days that I can say, I can show you anything you want to see in probably 5 seconds or less. May not be the way that you originally think, or the way that you're used to seeing it with your SolarWinds or your WhatsUp Gold, but they're not trying to do the whole network. They're just doing a little bit. Or maybe that's an unfair statement. Some clients do try to scale those out, but they certainly aren't keeping an historical 1-minute baseline underneath it. So what we're trying to do is just give you access to any data that you want in 2 to 5 seconds.
The global view, the typical knock one, I mean, that's the one I typically have time to look at during the day. And one frustrating thing is I can never change that from the top 10. So, like, what if I want to look at top 1? Is that customizable?
Yeah. So, yes, no, and maybe. It depends on the report. So this report here is the top everything, and that's customizable from 1 to 20. Might be 1 to 30. I can check quickly if you like, but you want to go up to 100. So,
well, it beats 10.
Right, yeah, so this is currently set to 15. You can see on that bottom summary line there. And it goes to 20 or 30. But just to show you something, again, extreme, look, I was working with a university in Texas. They're actually a reference for us on our homepage, so you can go and see them on our website if you want. And Matthew out there, hello Matthew, if you're watching, was monitoring 53,000 ports on his trial license as Statseeker. And I said to him, would you like to see who spewed out the most data out of your 53,000 ports since you installed Statseeker? He goes, sure. So I said, right, let's do this. Let's just go and get the top 1,000 of them. And let's go and get a bytes report. And I have a filter selected. I've put it in the text filter. I meant to put it down here. That's me in an unfamiliar environment there. There we go. Let's just go and get 1,000 lines of data and a bytes report. It's better. And you'll see the browser is just loading that now. It takes 2 seconds for Statseeker to push it out. The rest of the time is to get it from Australia and into this browser now. But there's 1,000 lines of data. And that's the busiest in the last 5 minutes. But we said, right, let's show you since you plugged Statseeker in. So here's now the last 90 days. So your question was, can we display more than the top 10? Well, here's 1,000 lines of it. And there's 3 months of data of 1,000 lines of data coming into this browser window now. I've been up to 18,000 lines I did with the guys at FedEx. And then the browser crashed. So, yeah. But you never care about that. The top 50, in fact, even the top 10 are so busy and so broken compared to the rest of the network that you never even look at number 15 or 20. When you monitor the big network, the worst ones are so bad that they come to the top and stand out. Anyway, when I did this with those guys from that university, number 10 on the list was a student in his dormitory. Now, there's 52,990 other ports on the network. It's a high-speed research network, 10 gig infrastructure all through the core of it. And some kid in his bedroom on the edge of the network is moving more data than the other 52,000. Anyway, what I've learned is that everybody has a kid in a bedroom on the edge of their network that's hosting his own website or something like that. But you don't know that it's happening until you monitor the whole network to see it.
Can you differentiate on the link speed? So I'm much more concerned with 10 and 40 gig links that are saturated than I am with 100 meg legacy link.
Yeah, so I think we can show you anything you want to see in less than 2 seconds. So
if it's a, you know,
just as an example here, we could say only show me my 100 meg links. And if I then go and run a bytes report on that, I don't know if it's my eyes or I think it's the resolution on this screen is, all the fonts look different with the running off this, but you can see there I've just called up the top 1,100 meg links in 2 seconds.
I noticed that was a group you made, so you can customize that then. You put up a group's data from the filter. They're custom ones you make in that column.
That's right, and they're rule-based. So you can say everything that's got the word VLAN in its IF description, put in the VLAN group. Everything that's got high priority WAN link in the IF description or the IF title, then put that into my high priority WAN link group.
It's dynamic, it grows and shrinks accordingly?
Yeah, yep.
Fantastic.
So it's dynamically maintained. And then there was a customer who said to us, great, I want to see everything that's in Rome, but I only want to see my 1 gig links in Rome. So we have the Boolean logic here to AND those together, and now we're looking at the subset of only the interfaces that are the 100 meg links, or 1 gig links in Rome. And just to show you if we've actually got any, in those 2 mouse clicks we've said, don't show me the whole network, only show me all these 1 gig links in Rome. There's a lot of them. And I'm displaying the top 1,000 of them, so they're all coming down into the browser here. But you can see here that this is only the 1 gig links in Rome.
Does it generate that informational list based on reports that it's received in the network? So, for instance, I won't see a 40 gig link listed as available unless some device is reporting they have a 40 gig link.
Yes, that's correct. So this is populated only with the data that you've got.
Okay.
Yep.
It's not like there's a pre-built section, so when 100 gig comes out and is populated, then, oh, hey, there's a new OS update that now has the 100 gig list in there. It's pulled in real time.
That's correct.
Okay.
It's done at the point of discovery. And every day at 11 o'clock, we ReWalk the network. So if someone puts a 100 meg link onto the network today, and it wasn't there yesterday, at 11 o'clock, the next time 11 a.m. comes around, we ReWalk the network, we'll pick it up, and it would then create that group. But that's toggleable, if there's such a word, so you can turn that feature off if you want. So if you just want to say, don't show me any of those interface speed groups, you just turn it off.
Can you trigger a ReWalk of the network?
At any time you want, either manually or automated and on a schedule.
Okay. Because, you know, conceivably, 24 hours max downtime if the guy completes the uplink install at 11:01, then it'll be 23 hours and 59 minutes until it comes
exactly.
back up. But
press the button, it'll do it again.
Install that day, and I can just tell it to go ahead and start
Immediately.
training this interface.
Yep, one button to click.
Very good.
We had a question here on Twitter. It says, does it Statseeker only offer visual analysis, or do they have automated trend identification and alerting? I think we talked about the trend, but how about the alerting?
No, it's just what you see here, and it's email. That's it. Now that I've said that, our alerting is actually not email. Our alerting is the execution of any script that you choose. We happen to have an email script, and that's the default thing in here. We also have a syslog script, and that's the default in here as well. But if you wanted to write your own script in Shell or C or Perl or something, anything that will run on a FreeBSD box, then you could make it have, I've had clients in the past that have Hawaiian hula dancer girls who come out on the screen and dance. And I said, what's that? And they said, that's Statseeker telling me your device is down. Well, it doesn't ship with hula dancers. But if you wanted to go and do that kind of stuff, then it's just executing a script.
You're saying the built-in ones are email notification and then the trap out to
It's
something?
Syslog. Email notification and syslog.
Syslog and then execute a script. So what are some of the triggers that you can trigger on for that? Is it based on those utilizations? Preset utilizations?
I think it's every single one of these reports here. So it's bits per second, bytes, packets, errors, discards, utilization, network delay, IP SLA response time, ping response time, up-down status. It's every criteria we collect.
Okay.
Yeah.
So is there any preset thresholds to trigger those scripts and we just have to plug in those actions? Or is that something that we need to go?
No, there's no preset thresholds. I'll give you an example of why. Here's a live story. We released this thresholding. This is a live thing, so I'll tell the world. We released a version of Statseeker that had thresholding on it. So one of our customers has 1,500 sites, 150,000 interfaces. And they turned on a threshold that said, if my link goes below 10% utilization for 10 minutes, generate a threshold alert. That night, every user went home. 150,000 interfaces went below 10%. 150,000 alerts went off every 10 minutes. Statseeker bundles them up into these giant emails and is trying to push it in. Look, we didn't like that as software. They didn't like that as a customer. So we did a .1 release the next day with this big red warning. Software's the same, but there's a big red warning saying, don't do this on your whole network. Thresholds are something you only want to do on the bits that you deem essential and critical. Because on 50,000 ports or 100,000 ports, you just don't want them on everything.
So what you're saying basically is we would set these up where we would typically set up a network monitoring solution. Statseeker gives us the full ability to go and deploy this throughout the network, but we can set up these thresholds where we normally would.
Yeah, the most elegant way to do it revolves around these groups. Because in real life, no one has a network that's 20,000 ports big. What they have is a network that's 20,000 ports big with this logic laid over the top of it and how they segment the network logically. So they have remote site 1, remote site 2, my Cisco, Juniper Foundry, they have all of the, it's just a logical distinction that they make. So the best way to do it is to create these logical distinctions to reflect the way that you view your network and then set your thresholds for the whole group. So all of my WAN links, all of my high priority uplinks, all of my big servers, all that kind of stuff. So group them first and then do the threshold once on that whole group. Okay, any other questions? You guys have been quite thorough.
If interfaces are down, are you going to pull those as well?
Yeah. If they're not active.
So you don't check IF status or Opera status, and if Opera status is down, you just skip it.
No, if Opera status is down, we keep polling it in case it comes up. You might want to be alerted.
But are you grabbing in octets, out octets, all these variables? And
comes back with nothing, yeah. But I'll give you a live example. You guys have got the White House, which is this big grand house. We have Parliament House. And Parliament House, believe it or not, they actually bury half of it. It's underground. It's a true story, isn't it? It's buried. And we're so proud of it, we stick it underground. Anyway, they've got, it's actually a really lovely building with no windows, as you can tell. But they've got 10,000 interfaces in that building. And I said, great, let's go monitor them. And they said, well, we've only got 5,000 active. Every building, every room has got 2 interfaces when we only need 1. I said, fine, you need a 5,000 port license. And they said, no. Well, actually, they actually went and purchased a 5,000 port license. But about a year later, they came back and said, oh, I want another 5,000 port license. And I said, why? And they said, because we want to be alerted every time someone plugs something into the network that I don't know about. When one of those supposedly inactive ports becomes active, let me know. Well, you can only do that if you're monitoring it the whole time to see when it comes up. So every 60 seconds, we check it. Are you there? Are you there? Are you there? You're back? Okay, send out the alert.
Yeah, I guess the question was more of trying to, again, person who runs MRTG, a pretty big box myself. I know how much load that puts on a box, trying to understand some of the magic behind on a server. The load it would take to pull, every 60 seconds.
On the Statseeker server?
Yeah.
Because there's almost no load on the device, so I'm just curious.
Well, no, the load on your server, right? To cover that many interfaces, pump out that much data, just looking at a 1 gig NIC, trying to send that message SDP gets and puts. But if you're looking at, so in a network I might run, I might have 37,000 ports. Of those 37,000 ports, probably 50% are up or down. They're just not used, right? They're not plugged in, they're idle.
Can almost guarantee it, yeah.
Right, so why would I pull all these different variables for a port that's down? I mean, yes, I'll check them.
Let me show you why a client saved $34 million and then published it in Network World magazine for that exact reason. Let me show you here. This client said, Statseeker, we got 400,000 ports. Can you tell us what's not being used? We said, sure. Click. Okay, now this client, the one we're on at the moment, you can see it's got 20,197 Ethernet ports on it, 10,000 used and 10,000 free. With the client that I'm actually talking about that had the $34 million of savings, and they're in California. They had 400,000 ports, 200,000 used, and 200,000 Ethernet ports that they owned that had not moved a single byte in 3 months. This report is looking at have you received a byte in 3 months. So why would you use it? Because it normally pays for Statseeker between 10 and 100 times over if you actually do that.
Right. Okay.
Yeah. Actually, that's why I think I've got the best job in the world, because we plug it in and then we say, right, do you want to see how much capacity you've got that you don't actually want? They say, sure. We print this out and we look at the price of Statseeker versus what we just identified there, and they say, oh, it's just a no-brainer.
So is there a custom port or a custom report then that will do that? Will show me, show me my percentage of utilization of switches, port utilization. So I have 100 switches, but of my 100 switches, 50 or 50% used, 40 or 10% used, and one has only got.
No. What we would do is just list them for you
And you'd have to.
with the percent utilization. So you just have to go and dump it into Excel and then run some kind of grouping table thing over it. Yep. Because you want to dump them into a bucket, don't you?
I want to see percentage of idle ports per switch. Right? So I can say when somebody comes and says, oh, look, we need more switches. No, you don't. You need to clean up the patch cables in the closet.
In terms of,
Right.
oh, I'm sorry, I misunderstood your question.
So
I thought.
48 port switch, all 48 ports are patched.
Oh, the answer is yes, I can show you
But
that.
only 24 ports are active, and only 24 ports have been active in the last 30, 60, 45 days, 90 days.
Yeah, exactly. I'll show you that right now. Let's just go and say, just show me Brisbane, the city that I come from, and just show me the capacity out there. And here it is. We've got 171 ports out there, 31 used. I've got 140 of them available. I've got 82 of them available on switch 2. If I drill down into it, we'll show you which ones are used or which ones are not used. I've got to go full screen to make it fit, but on the far right-hand side, you see the green and red dots. Red means not used, green means used.
Sweet.
Sounds like a bean counter question. My answer is buy another switch. I'm a VAR though, I can say that.
Right, 200.
On the